They say more than 24 people were involved in 2 separate attacks last night. And that includes a stabbing that left a 17-year-old hospitalized. Several suspects are still on the run in that case.
All right, this morning the attacks happened just steps away from where 2 NYPD officers were pummeled by a group of migrants last month.
In this same area, you have multiple migrant shelters, and police telling us there was some kind of argument before these 2 attacks happened. Investigators say they don't believe they are connected, but that's something they continue to look into. Yesterday, police said they were seen collecting evidence as well as swabbing a knife after a 17-year-old was stabbed in the back in Times Square. According to the New York Post, the teen victim and some of the suspects are believed to be migrants. Police took 7 people in custody and they are looking for 16 others.
So it appears that this sort of murderous violence is just everyday routine behavior that continues to occur quite regularly outside of these migrant shelters. And apparently it isn't exclusive to the outdoor setting either. I showed you in another video earlier this week NYPD officers being assaulted by migrants as they were attempting to remove an individual from a migrant encampment. In this report here, we have 2 attacks taking place that may or may not be related, involving over 24 individuals who at the same location where 2 NYPD officers were beaten by a group of 13 men outside of this same shelter, decide they're going to enact more violence, resulting in a 17-year-old migrant being stabbed. And I point this out in order to make everyone aware of the fact that these invaders, they're brazen, they're criminals, they aren't afraid of law enforcement, and most importantly of all, they aren't going to stop. Let me say that again. Most importantly of all, they aren't going to stop.
In the second attack, a 28-year-old man was beaten by a group of men. Investigators did take 3 people into custody in that attack and are looking for 2 others.
There you have some of the details of the second attack. What sticks out like a sore thumb to me, however, is in a combined total of 28 participants of these assaults, 10 were apprehended and 18 remain at large. And if this is what's happening outside of these shelters in plain view of the public, okay, could you imagine what's happening inside of these shelters? Behind closed doors? We're already aware of the sexual assaults that are taking place, of the vicious stabbings and beatings that are taking place. Now, could you imagine what could potentially happen if you further incentivize these criminals? With, let's say, $10,000 MasterCards?
In New York City, migrants are being offered $10,000 MasterCards. That's just a credit card with a balance of $10,000 to spend that they don't have to pay back. Try to put aside for a second the fact that this is not fair, especially if you live in New York City. Your taxes are super high, one of the highest in the country and also the world, and your tax dollars are just being given out on credit cards. I know. It's infuriating. Put aside for a second. Clearly, it's also not safe for them.
It's already not safe for them. This is just an all-around disastrous situation that, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely not going to end well. Not for these migrants, and absolutely not for the tax-paying citizens of New York City. But for the gangs and the cartels, this is a dream come true. This is a dream come true.
They are living with desperate and often violent organized crime gangs, which we're going to prove to you in a second. We're going to see the New York City police chief telling us about how violent some of these organized crime rings are.
They're essentially ghost criminals. No criminal history, no photos, no cell phone, no social media. Sometimes we're even unclear on a name or a date of birth. And on top of that, these operations are extremely sophisticated. They intentionally try to evade the police.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We already know the cartels and the gangs are running the show, dictating who does what, who gets what, and what tributes are to be paid out to who, and when. But another dynamic to this entire dilemma is what's going to happen when situations occur, and I guarantee you they will occur, where these $10,000 MasterCards end up supposedly missing or stolen. Or actually missing or stolen, which is what's going to happen. Then what? I'll tell you what. Another bonehead policy will be proposed and then adopted by our elected officials, and they won't even care if they're breaking the law in doing so. And that'll be that. Because we the people are we the chumps. Settling for whatever they tell us is in our best interest, when we absolutely can see that it isn't.
Okay, so back to the cards themselves and how much this is costing the city and taxpayers. Well, the New York Post was able to publish the contract that New York City made with the bank that is setting up those cards. They are Newark-based Mobility Capital Finance was referred to by City Hall. Basically, they met at like a cocktail party, this guy. This sounds shady AF to me. Government contracts are supposed to be open for bidding. People go to jail when it is proven that they did not openly bid government contracts. So how did this happen? Nevertheless, MocoFi got the contract. The Post reports that it is owned by an emerging provider of service called Wole Coxum, is the manager of this.
It's like they're all gangsters, right? All of the gangsters seem to be benefiting. You've got the criminal cartels, the banking cartels, the credit cartels, and the government. And there's no end in sight to this. There's no end in sight. I covered this MasterCard topic in a video earlier this week. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you go ahead and do so upon the conclusion of this episode, of course. All right, don't be leaving nowhere just yet. And at that time, the information that was available suggested that these would only be $1,000 MasterCards, and that somehow the $53 million that the city would be spending on this initiative, on top of the $3 billion that we've already spent, would somehow end up in saving the city money. But what's happening is even worse than we could have ever imagined, if you can actually believe that.
New York City says, screw that, we like bank fees. In fact, they're paying $53 million to the credit card company that's handing these cards out to migrants. That's $53 million in fees only that they have marked of your tax dollars. Doesn't count the money that they're putting on the cards at a rate of $10,000 each. The city will be paying for these cards a one-time setup fee of $125,000. 3% fee for the first $50 million plus $350 per card.
Wow. So the $53 million, which I was under the impression would be what it took to fund this entire initiative, is actually just this credit card company's fee. That's aside from the one-time setup fee of $125,000, with an additional 3% fee for the first $50 million, plus $350 per card. Holy shit. No wonder we're fucking broke. Holy smokes.
Originally, Mayor Adams had said that this program would be for approximately 500 people at a rate of $1,000 per card, but now it's clear that many more will be getting these cards at a rate of $10,000 per card.
And by the way, so what do they even need $10,000 for? They're getting free room and board in luxury hotels. They're getting 3 meals a day. They don't have to work. They get a cell phone with a cell phone plan. Like, what else do they need? What else do they need?
I couldn't agree with you more. This is outrageous. What Clayton forgot to mention, though, is that on top of all that he said, they also receive all expense paid travel to any destination of their choice. But you're right. You're right on the money. And as I mentioned earlier, and Natalie clears up right here, everyone was under the impression that the breakdown would be $1,000 cards. The only difference being that instead of 500 people receiving this card, I was under the impression, from the information that I had, it was going to be 500 families that would be receiving this. But as you can see here, it's far worse. far worse than we could have ever imagined. Talk about out of the frying pan and into the fire, right?
Oh, and there are no restrictions. The money can be used for anything. You can buy some luxury shoes, AirPods, whatever. Even SNAP recipients don't do that. They have to only use their credits on authorized purchases. And also this can be given to minors according to the contract with the bank. If the cards are distributed to anyone under 18, the city shall confirm the minor's card holder's parent or guardian. Okay, but they're not checking IDs, so how can they do that?
Very, very simple, my dear. Let me show you. I happen to have footage here of one of these transactions actually taking place, so let's take a look at that. Are you here for the MasterCards?
Yes, and not speaking no English. I'm not speaking English. I am here.
That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. Shout out to the guys over at Redacted. I'm going to provide a link in the description below so you can go and check out the entire video. Absolutely go ahead and do that. And again, if you haven't done so, like and subscribe on Rumble. Follow and like. You already know what to do. In the description, you're also going to find all my social media, so you can follow me on Instagram, on TikTok, and on 10X. The perfection is still in full effect. Thanks, everybody. Pretty good, pretty neat. Later.